The PlayStation 1 was actually a console I was very late to. I was always Nintendo grown up. Everybody I knew had a Nintendo, and everybody made the logical step from Super Nintendo to N64. However, as time went on, the PlayStation became bigger and bigger, and I too jumped in with a copy of Micro Machines V3, which has sadly been lost to time. However, like a lot of people in the UK, I had a chipped console, so nearly everything I had was contained in a binder. And of course, as time went on, PlayStation 1 moved to PlayStation 2, and all of those games, well, they were no longer playable. I sold my PlayStation 1 to get the PlayStation 2, and I had a load of games that I just couldn't play anymore, and so I started buying a collection. Now, the games I have actually got a collection of are actually different to what I originally had, and aside from one or two titles, it's a completely different scope. So in this video, let's have a look and see what I do own and what I would like to pick up in the near future. I'm back with me cup of tea, a nice anime mat, and a lot of PlayStation 1 games. Now, the first game we're going to talk about is an instant classic, and I think it's one of those games that if you're into retro stuff, this franchise will invoke a lot of nostalgia, and that title is Theme Park. Now, Theme Park was released on a bunch of consoles and the PC. I have a lot of nostalgia for the PC version, and surprisingly the DS version, which got re-released a few years later. And as I started buying PlayStation games, Theme Park had to be on my list. Theme Park is a management sim in which you control your own theme park. You build the paths, you build the rides, and you try and fleece the customers from a lot of their money. And there's a lot of really interesting simulation in this one, because let's face it, a theme park sounds like a nice place, but the goal is get as much money from people as you can, and honestly this one is an absolute gem. Sadly, the manual for mine is a little worse for wear, but it's a common enough game that I can maybe upgrade somewhere down the line. Next up is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Now, this one is one I picked up maybe about 10 years from a retro game event, and honestly I have never played it. This is going to be the repeat for a few of these titles. It's one that I always had an eye on, but never actually managed to get to touch. But yeah, it's one that I think is in a lot of people's collections. I'm looking forward to the Switch re-release that's coming very shortly, and that's going to be something we will mention a lot of times in this video about re-releases, because I think the majority of my PlayStation collection is now available on other consoles, and I can just play them brand new, which is kind of why I stopped, but that's enough for that now. Next up is another title that I have a lot of nostalgia for on the PC, and recently the Switch re-release, and that is Little Big Adventure. Now, this title was actually instrumental in how I played games. I fell in love with this. This was a isometric 3D title at a time when isometric 3D titles weren't really the norm. In my opinion, little me found this one very difficult. However, the second one that was on the PC was a lot easier. I have recently played the Switch version of the remake of this, which honestly fixes a lot of problems with it. But honestly, this is a fantastic one. If you want a nice little retro game, this one should be on your list. A very underrated title indeed. Next up is a title that I think you guys have all heard of, and it is Warcraft. That's right, Warcraft. However, this is actually Warcraft 2 Dark Saga. Now, before World of Warcraft came, Warcraft was basically an RTS series of titles, and this one is no different. Now, interestingly enough, the most nostalgia I have of this one is not buying it on the PC. I always looked at this one, the box in the PC, and it was very often discounted down to like maybe a £5, and I remember one time being at BD's and holding the PC title in my hand for so long, and ahhing whether or not to pick it up. I didn't. And then years later, I went and bought the PlayStation version from a retro game event and never touched it. Next up is Jade Cocoon, the first one. This is the Ubisoft exclusive version. I played a lot of the second one and I played some of the first one, but again, this is one where I picked up the second one, enjoyed it, and then managed to hunt down the first one at the same time. This was at a time when Game Station and Granger Games were still selling PlayStation 1 titles, so a bunch of these I managed to just pick up as and when. And yeah, this is a fun little, I wouldn't call it a Pokemon clone, but a monster raising situation title, which yeah, it's a decent title. Next up is another PC game that honestly I'm not a huge fan of the PlayStation version, and that is Theme Hospital. Now, Theme Park was quite basic in design. Theme Hospital pushed things a little bit more, and yeah, I think the PlayStation version is just a little bit too far. Theme Park is a lot more basic, but yeah, this one, it's a lot more difficult. I prefer the PC version and the recent 2 Point Hospital games. It's one that I love the franchise for, and I picked this up simply because I wanted a nice physical copy to have on my shelf. But yeah, not so fond of the PlayStation one. The PC one is one of the greats of all times. Next up is a game that I played probably about 10 minutes of. Techno Mage, Return of Eternity. Yeah, this is an RPG, and honestly, it's not a good one. It's fine. I think I just played it and I think I kind of watched the opening sequence, did a bit of the opening village, and then just kind of felt I just stopped playing it and never went back to it. But hey, it was £3 at the time. I'm sure this is worth at least £6. Next up is Vandal Hearts and Vandal Hearts 2. Now, this is a Konami series and it's more of a tactical battle simulator. A very fantastic title. Vandal Hearts 2 is easily one of my favourites on the PlayStation 2. Vandal Hearts 1 is a little bit harder to get into. It is essentially a companion piece to... it's not the same franchise, but I always associate this with the Suikoden series. I don't know if it's because volume like number 1 and 2 kind of came out around the same time as each other, and they were always advertised on the back of each other's box. But yeah, these are really good titles which they haven't held up particularly well, but I would love to see remasters on current consoles. Next up is Monkey Hero, or The Adventures of Monkey Hero Value series. Can you remember those? This one's a fun little, just a fun little title. It's one that I used to always see in Morrison's and stuff like that, reduced to next to nothing. I think what's the other one called? I'd say Urgent Paradox or Urgent Emergency or something like that. I will try and find a picture of it. And yeah, these are games that I used to see for next to nothing, and then later on I found out that they were actually considered decent games. So yeah, I think this was one I used to always see at retro gaming events, so I picked it up, and yeah, it's a fun little title. The next two titles are again titles I picked up on the PC, really like, but yeah, they're fine. Now, Populous is a title that I did play a lot of on the PlayStation with obviously the bootleg copies, and Railroad Tycoon is Railroad Tycoon 2. Yeah, it's kind of one of these things. Bullfrog were non-stop hits until Dungeon Keeper 2, and then they got dissolved. And one of the things that always annoys me is that Bullfrog got basically wiped out to give us Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter sequel titles. That's right, Bullfrog died for Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings titles. I know a lot of people have nostalgia for them, but they just annoy me. Railroad Tycoon 2, you build a train set basically. It's a fantastic game if you like that kind of thing, but yeah, it is a really good title. That, yeah, Transport Fever is kind of the new version, I would kind of say. But yeah, these are games that are better off on the PC. I just wanted to have them physically, so yeah, I bought them. Now, at the time, I was more or less buying any kind of PlayStation game that captured my eye, and that's why I own Ready to Rumble Boxing. That's about as much as I can say. It was £3. It's a classics. Yeah, I prefer this on the N64 if I'm honest, but it's one that I always remember playing a lot of when I was younger and having a good time with friends, but yeah, not so much when I rebought it. It's fine. Next up is one of the titles I would love to see on modern consoles, and that is Wild Arms. Now, the Wild Arms series is a JRPG, but focused on cowboys. That's right, it focused on the Wild West. It's just something that you don't often see anymore. In fact, you're very hard pressed to find something that's a JRPG that isn't a fantasy title or maybe a little bit more sci-fi. Back in the day we were getting cowboys, pirates, all kinds of things, and yeah, Wild Arms is just one of those titles again. I think this is actually a Sony owned franchise, so of course they've just left it to die. Wild Arms 3 is another one that I really enjoyed on the PlayStation 2, but yeah, this is one I actually forget I own because it took me ages to buy it, and I think at the time I had it on the PlayStation Vita or the PlayStation Portable, and I ended up just kind of buying this, having it in the collection because I wanted all of the JRPGs, and yeah, it's a fantastic title, deserves to be on modern consoles. Next up we have one of the greatest RPGs on the console, and that is Star Ocean: The Second Story, a title that actually recently got a fantastic remake that I played about last year, and this one was always on my list to collect because this is one that I had as a bootleg and one that I played so much of when I was younger, and I'm just so happy to own this one. It is an absolutely fantastic JRPG that, if you are interested in JRPGs, needs to be on your list. It's an absolutely fantastic one, which has only become better with the remake. It is easily one of the great JRPGs of all time, and surprisingly I think they didn't even release the first one over in the UK, so yeah, it's a one that I've worked hard to get, and it's one that is one of my jewels in the collection. Not the biggest jewel, we will get to that one towards the end, but yeah, this one is a fantastic release. Another title we have is Transport Tycoon, which I think has actually got one of the heaviest books in the entire of this. Transport Tycoon is an absolutely fantastic title if you want your little transport games. Of course you can get it on the PC and everything else, and it works better on that, but it is a really great title on the PlayStation as well. It's quite easy to get into, and it's very easy to just pick up and enjoy with a very high ceiling of gameplay. It's very satisfying to have your cities start off as little hamlets and then become huge while you have this massive network of rail trucks and everything just doing their jobs just to kind of keep things going. Very fantastic game. Not so much on the PlayStation, but it still is a good game in its own right. I would love to have a remake of this. And next up we have Saga Frontier 2. Now this is one that I paid quite a bit for back in the day. I think it was about £20 and didn't have a manual, but it's a Square Enix game. Saga is an interesting title because I recently picked up the Romance and Saga one for PlayStation 5 and absolutely fell in love with it. This one, I didn't really play as much of it, but it is still an interesting game in which you play through like generations. It's like your father son kind of thing, and obviously you can change different characters. It's a very interesting franchise that I don't think gets enough love. Next up is Dragon Quest VII, the Japanese version. We never actually got Dragon Quest VII until the 3DS remake in the UK, so because I had no way to actually play American games, Dragon Quest was never a franchise until Game Boy Color, Dragon Warrior Monsters, but then I think it really took off when we got the 8th one on the PlayStation 2. After that, I've played every single one, absolutely love it. One of my favourite franchises of all time. And yeah, it was cheap at one point, so I just picked it up just to have something as extra as on the collection. Can't play it, but hey, it's in my collection, and that's what we can say about a lot of these things. Next up is Blaze and Blade. I think this was the last one I needed at one point to get an entire JRPG collection, and then I went and sold all the Final Fantasies. Boo. But oh well, it is a fantastic fun little game. It's not one of the better ones, but it is a fun little title if you kind of just want a JRPG to kind of have a fun time with. But let's face it, Star Ocean, Final Fantasy, Wild Arms, Legend of Legia, there are so many titles that kind of eclipse this, and this one kind of got a little bit forgotten. Speaking of forgotten franchises, we have Sony's answer to The Legend of Zelda, which was Alundra. These are fantastic games. These are really underrated titles they don't get enough love. They are really fun, action-based RPGs, action adventures, very similar to Zelda. If you like Zelda, you're going to have a good time with these. Of course, I mean, it never lived up to Zelda. Ocarina of Time came out and kind of blew these things out of the water, but they are definitely ones worth picking up if you do get a chance to see them. I really enjoyed the first one. Never played much of the second one, but the first one is definitely one of my favourites on the console. A one from my childhood. Not a great game. I think the N64 version is a little bit superior in my opinion, but yeah, not a great game whatsoever. It's South Park. Yeah. Next up is a title that I think a lot of you guys are familiar with, but it's Diablo. Yeah. Diablo on the PlayStation 1. And PlayStation 1 had a lot of PC ports when you kind of look back on it. But yeah, this is a fantastic version of it. Not as good as the PC one, of course, but yeah, I think if you want Diablo and you want to play it on the PlayStation 3 and on the HD screen, this is probably a good shout. I think it's fairly expensive, however, because it's a popular franchise. Of course, it's going to be slightly expensive. But yeah, it's Diablo on the PlayStation. Death Trap Dungeon. Now, this game, it's not fantastic. It's fine. I'm going to be honest, at the time, I was absolutely adored with Bullfrog and their Dungeon Keeper series. I picked up this expecting something similar. Nope. It's okay. It'll get you an hour of gameplay. But yeah, it's not something that I kind of would say it's one of my favourite games of all time. It's kind of another one that's kind of... It fits the motif of my PlayStation collection, which you probably are starting to guess is very much made up of RPGs and simulation titles. Next up is Guardians Crusade, and yeah, this one, it's fine. Again, it's another one that's in the JRPG collection, which is what I'm really focusing on, and if you've got nothing else to play in terms of JRPGs, you might have a good time with this, but it's very much what I would say a PlayStation 1 JRPG that probably should stay in the PlayStation 1 sphere. A fun title if you kind of get into it, but it's nothing exactly special. Next up is Puzznic. I swear to God, I don't even remember owning this one. I mean, I'm assuming this is something I kind of got in a deal with a few other ones, and I was just like, it's got anime on, it's a puzzle game, I'll pick it up. I know nothing about this game. I'm going to be honest, I know absolutely nothing about this, and yeah, it looks like a fun puzzle game. It probably is. Maybe I'll play it sometime. Probably never. Next up is another one that's a little bit expensive, and that is Azure Dreams. Now, I have a lot of nostalgia for the Game Boy Color version. I don't know why. I've got a lot of nostalgia for that. Maybe it was because it was one that I used to see in the Nintendo magazines. I didn't even know the PlayStation 1 existed. I picked this up maybe about 10 years ago at a retro game fair, and it's fine. It's another one of those ones where I have an issue with a PlayStation as kind of a console, because a lot of these games take so long to load anything up, and they take so long to get going, that yeah, I mean, I can sit with an hour with this and get past like the open and stuff. It's okay. Again, it's kind of like Guardian Crusade. It's kind of a title that's kind of forgotten about, but probably for the right reasons. It's nothing special, but it's nothing bad either. We have a Japanese copy of Suikoden. Yeah, this is another one that was stupidly cheap. I mean, obviously it doesn't have half the stuff, but it's got the disc and it's got the manual, and the manual just looks so nice. That's all I wanted it for. The manual just looks absolutely beautiful. And yeah, at the time it was the way I had Suikoden, because yeah, that's a story for later on in the video. Next up is Civilization 2.
it's the only way I can play Civilization 2, because it seems to be very difficult to play Civilization 2 on the PC. So yeah, I bought this because I was fancying Civilization 2, and of course you go to these retro game fairs, they've got them in a box. It was about £6. I picked it up, had a game of Civilization, had a very good time, never played it again. There's better ways to play Civilization these days on consoles, so this is kind of a bit of a redundant one, but hey, I own Civilization 2 physically. Great. Next up is another one that is literally just getting a remake or remaster and had a lot of controversy because they used AI to do the translation. And that title is Front Mission 3. Now, I played a lot of the remake of the first one, and I played some of this one. This is a fantastic game. If you want a little tactics-based game similar to Fire Emblem or Advance Wars, this one should be on your list. PlayStation has a handful of these, including like the Vandal Hearts ones, but not a huge amount. And if I'm honest, it's one of those ones I do prefer to be on a handheld console. But yeah, this is still a fantastic game. This is easily one of the better RPGs, JRPGs, tactical based titles on the console. And as we are moving on now, it is all killer titles. Because next up we have Grandia, and this is a fantastic game. Again, this is another one that I own, and interesting enough, now I had a bit of, when I was younger I wasn't into anime, and I remember watching Digimon, and I remember seeing this game on the shelves and just being like, that's a Digimon game, it looks like a Digimon. And yeah, I was an idiot. And yeah, I didn't pick this one up until a lot later. I have tried a few times on the PlayStation 1 to get into it. Couldn't. I recently picked up the GameCube, the Switch version of the remake, which with 1 and 2, and I enjoyed it a bit more. It's a fantastic game, and it's one I'm really proud to have on, and it took me a while to get this one. This was, again, Game Station, Granger Games. I will just search, and I miss those times of being able to search and actually just flick through so many PlayStation 1 games and then find a gem like this. So next up we have 2, and I mentioned this franchise just a minute ago. Digimon Monsters. Now this is the one that everybody remembers. This is the one, obviously they're using the anime as kind of the thing, and then you're kind of just like, it's a pet simulator where you can battle things, but this one is this is one of my all-time favourite PlayStation games. I remember a summer of playing this and Metal Gear Solid and Dino Crisis 2 and just listening to OPM's Heaven is a Half-Pipe over and over again. I don't know what it is. This game and Heaven is a Half-Pipe is not something you would probably put together, but it's something that is going together. It's a fantastic game. I mean, it's not the best, but you kind of meet what it is. It's very difficult, and you've got this whole training simulator and stuff like that. It's a really good one. I think they've remade this so many times, but they just never released it on like a console that I had, or they just never released it over in the UK. But yeah, so interesting enough, we didn't get Digimon World 2. Well, we got Digimon World 2003. You know, 2001 titles missed. No, this is just the third one. They just renamed it. Okay, this is what WH Smiths used to do games. WH Smiths used to be absolutely fantastic for JRPGs. 10 quid. 10 quid. A few other titles such as Final Fantasy 1 and 2, 10 quid. Final Fantasy 4 and 5, 10 quid. Final Fantasy 6, 10 quid. And then I went and sold them all. But Digimon Card Battle, I love this one. I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you anything about the Digimon card game this day, and I couldn't tell you the rules, but I had such a good time with this one. I don't think this one ever made it to America. But yeah, the Digimon games, they're fun, they're fine. You need a lot of nostalgia for them, but yeah, I like this franchise. And boo, boo, this is something I will be complaining about in the near future. Boo, crack. And now we come to Final Fantasy. Yeah, so a long time ago I had Final Fantasy 1 and 2, I had 4 and 5 and 6. Poor me, had to sell some games, and so I sold them along with 8. I don't like 8. I hate 8. Final Fantasy 7, I like it. Final Fantasy 9, I like it a lot more. I don't know what it is. This one appealed to me a lot more than this one. I didn't start off with Final Fantasy as a JRPG. I don't consider it to be the best JRPG on the PlayStation. There's another title which you're going to kind of guess soon, which is going to be the big one. But yeah, it's a great series. I like this one more than I like this one, but they're both really good. They're both cornerstones of the JRPG world. But Final Fantasy has never been a franchise that I would see as like being my favourite. It's always been pretty competent. It's like, until recently, you used to be able to go, a Final Fantasy game is a good game. And then they kind of made Final Fantasy 13 and then lost a lot of my love. But yeah, Final Fantasy, the early ones, they're all decent, except 8. Never 8. Next up is a title that I love this franchise, or at least I used to love it. I kind of fell off with it at the DS stage and never really came back. And that is Harvest Moon. Now this is Back to Nature. This, if you guys are aware of it, there was an N64 version of Harvest Moon. Then they made Back to Nature, which is basically Friends of Mineral Town, I believe, which was on the Game Boy Advance and recently came on the Switch and I'm assuming PlayStation. But yeah, this is kind of like a remade version of the N64 versions where the characters do, the townsfolk are different kind of characters. Yeah, it's a weird one. I spent a lot of time with this one, but yeah, this one is a fantastic one. One of my favourites. Again, this is another one which I got for next to nothing from Do-It Smiths. Tried to sell it, but nobody wanted to buy it at the time, and I'm so glad I didn't sell it because it's Harvest Moon. It's one of my favourites. I just love this just design. It's just a fantastic game. I want to get back into Harvest Moon, or Stories of Seasons that they call now. I know Harvest Moon's kind of, Stories of Season is Harvest Moon now. But yeah, never really got back into it. So yeah, I want to try and, I know Friends of Mineral Town is on the Switch, so I do want to try and get that one. Next up is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Limited Edition. I don't have the Limited Edition. This is just the disc. So, there's a story about this one. So I got this when this was really hard to find, and I mean really hard to find, when CX was starting to do retro games and they had one copy of this, and I saved up and traded a load of stuff and bought this because at the time I was just like, well, I don't really want to buy loads of games, I don't want to kind of hoard stuff, I'll buy all the expensive games. That's why I have a few of the more niche games like Diablo. And yeah, this arrived, limited edition, with the disc. No CD, no manual, big massive gash through there. They didn't have any others. I was stupid, I didn't take it back. My fear of missing out overtook me. It's a fantastic title, it's just kind of a little bit marred by the fact that I was stupid and just didn't take it back and waited until I got a better copy in. Next up is Legend of Legia, and this is a Blockbuster version. Yeah. Rental only, not for resale. Now this is actually the Blockbuster copy that I used to rent over and over again, and it does have a little bit of special fondness for it. It's a fantastic title. In fact, this is one of the titles that I think really needs a remake. I would love to see this again. I think the company who did it though kind of folded after the second one, which was a bit poo. But yeah, this is one of the best JRPGs on the system. It's kind of got like a bit of a it's turn-based, but you can also use fighting inputs to kind of do the attacks. So yeah, you've got quite a unique little title here. A really underrated one. I think whenever people mention PlayStation 1 JRPGs, this one always gets mentioned as it's an underrated gem. But yeah, I love this one. I would love to get a better version and have this one for nostalgia's sake, because of course we don't have the manual, and obviously this is a resale one. But I have a lot of love for this one. Blockbusters was selling off a lot of their titles. I swooped in and bought this for like £5, and I was stupid because they had loads of other really good titles at the time and I just didn't buy them, and now they're expensive. Oh well. Next up is SimCity 2000. This is on my good shelf. I don't know why this got swapped up with Star Ocean at one point, but yeah, SimCity 2000. I can safely say it's SimCity 2000 on the PlayStation. Yeah, as you can probably see, my collection is just JRPGs and like simulation games. You can tell what franchises I really liked. Next up is another essential JRPG franchise for the PlayStation, and that is Breath of Fire 3 and Breath of Fire 4. Now, Breath of Fire 4 recently got re-released on Good Old Games on the PC, so I'm really hoping that we will get another version of it in the near future. This Breath of Fire 3 is kind of, it's a bit mucky. I actually prefer 4, but the only reason I prefer 4 is because I had 4 for a long time. And as you can see, this is in really nice condition. I bought this brand new, again from Do-It Smiths, the saviour of PlayStation 1 JRPGs. And I bought this from, obviously, a reseller. Boo. It's one of those ones that really annoys me because I can see what I bought brand new and what I adored and loved over the years, and then what I bought kind of pre-owned at an inflated price and came kind of in crap condition. It kind of annoys me. It's just like, but yeah, I love this franchise. It really needs, these two really need to be remade on a new console, or just ported. They're pretty fine as it is. This one's got a lot of slowdown, but yeah, it's a fantastic series. Next up is another title that everybody adores who played it, and that is Legend of Dragoon. And if I'm honest, I barely played it. I bought this from Nerg about 10 years ago, I think, along with As You Dreams and a few other things as kind of like a bundle. But yeah, I never ended up playing it. I don't know why. I think there's something weird about PlayStation 1 games, is that, again, the loading just takes up that long, and especially for these like 3D CGI ones, they take that long to kind of get into, and yeah, I just got bored after a while. But it's one I've always kept saying, I'll go back and play it. I don't have any way of playing PlayStation 1 games that's hooked up to the TV, so it's going to sit on my shelf. Huzzah! Collecting! Next up, we're going to talk about the crown jewels of my collection. Two games that, well, the first one is great, but not one of the top games. The second one is easily my favourite game on the PlayStation 1. One of my favourite games of all time. One of my favourite JRPGs of all time. I mean, did you expect anything else? Of course, this is Suikoden 1 and Suikoden 2. Now, Suikoden 2, I took a gamble on. Now, years ago, game FAQs used to have forums. They might still do, I don't know. But they used to do what was basically like a top kind of game thing, like a little tournament where games would fight each other and you would vote on a poll which one was the best one. This went up against Final Fantasy and held its own. Everybody was talking about it. I remember going to Game Station and they had this on the shelf for I think £25 at the time. £25. It wasn't even new at the time. This was a pre-owned game. And I looked at it for ages and I went, I'm going to have to get it. I'm going to have to get it. I had to go out, get money out of the bank. Some of my savings out of the bank. Bought it. And I remember the guy at the till going, oh, you want this because it's £250 online or whatever it was at the time. And I just went, nope, never heard of it. I just thought it looked cool. And it is. It is easily one of the best games of all time. Like, honestly, I mean, Suikoden 1 is good, but it's kind of whatever. It's I can kind of see why people aren't a fan of it. But this is the perfect sequel. It builds everything off this, makes it better. The wars are probably the only thing that's a little bit worse, but yeah, it's a turn-based one. You get 108 stars of destiny, there's 108 characters, you get castles that you build up and then kind of recruit people to open shops or play as playable characters. The story is pretty much unmatched in terms of PlayStation 1 era. I can't think of a game that has a better storyline. That is pretty consistent with the storyline as well. This is about a war of loss, of love. You know what you're expecting. It is easily one of the best games of all time. And just so happens to be really expensive now. Huzzah! Yay! Perfect. And yeah, so that is my PlayStation 1 collection. And I know you guys are looking at me just going, well, where's Tomb Raider? Where's Crash Bandicoot? Where's Driver? Where's Gran Turismo? And I'm just kind of like, yeah, they're not there. And I don't know what it is. I just feel like nearly every single PlayStation game now has a better way of playing it.
And I've got a few issues with PlayStation games. First up is the dual cases, as you saw with that Castlevania, as you saw with the Breath of Fire, saw with a few others. The dual cases, you look at them and they crack. I know you can replace them and you can buy sports games to replace them, but it's a bit of a faff on to change them. I do have full intentions of replacing the Castlevania box and such as I go on, but yeah. The other thing is that, again, just about everything I have on the PlayStation can be played in a better way on modern consoles. Now, there is something to be said about playing games on classic hardware, but PlayStation's weird because of loading times and the discs. The amount of times that you're just sitting just waiting for stuff to load is annoying for me. And if I'm honest, the PlayStation controller has evolved, but not evolved enough that I kind of feel subsequently different to playing it on older hardware. I don't know what it is. I just feel like I've got a lot of games that I like, a lot of games that I wouldn't trade in, like Suikoden, Harvest Moon, stuff like that. But overall, I think I'm more than content just playing the PlayStation library just on current generation stuff. So the combination for me of being able to play a lot of these games on current hardware while also not having to put up with broken boxes, scratched discs and stuff like that makes it kind of difficult. I would like to add to the PlayStation collection, but if I'm honest, there's not many titles that I kind of would say I would really want. Maybe Driver. I had GTA and then sold it, but maybe if I saw that really nice one, I would maybe pick it up. Other titles, Tomb Raider, maybe. Crash Bandicoot, never was a fan. Spyro, maybe. I would like to finish off my Final Fantasy collection and rebuy those titles that I sold years ago. Ape Escape's one I would love to own. But overall, I look back on the PlayStation, and while I have nostalgia for it, I don't have huge nostalgia for it. And I feel like there's a lot of games that I would just buy to fill out the collection and just kind of, I wouldn't be overly fussed if I had them and didn't have them. So realistically, a collection is what you make of it. I would love to finish off Final Fantasy, maybe see if there's any other JRPGs that were released in Europe, because a lot of the time I see people when they talk about PlayStation 1, they talk about titles that just weren't obtainable in Europe or in the UK. A lot of titles such as Lunar, Xenogears, Final Fantasy Tactics, they never came over here, and I don't have that associated nostalgia. If they did come over here, I'd be buying. But yeah, let me know, is there any JRPGs that I missed? Is there any other titles that you think I would enjoy, given that I love JRPGs and simulation titles? And if you stayed all the way to the end, a huge, huge thanks. It really is appreciated. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this, and we'll have plenty more fantastic titles coming soon. I don't look forward to doing my Switch collection.